Started. 4-7 notes. So we are going to do more graphing today, but we're graphing in a different form, and I believe many of you will agree with me that this form is easier to graph. Let's refresh our memory on a couple things. So standard form, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. This is what we did in the 4-6 notes. What we did on the 4-6 quiz that we took before break. Today's notes are over the intercept form. A times x minus p times x minus q. Notice that A is still in the same place as at the very front. There is no B or C, so we're not labeling B or C on this kind of problem. Don't worry about P and Q. I'll explain it to you, but we're not going to use it. So don't get up in arms about P and Q. So last week when we did these problems, I'm actually going to start down here with the axis of symmetry. How did we find the axis of symmetry, the AOS of this equation?
Negative b over 2a.
Good. Negative b over 2a. Now there's an important piece here.
X equals.
Yes. X equals, and that's really important because you have to put that in your answer. If you leave it out of your answer, it's wrong. And then from there, we find the vertex. Reminder, the vertex is the exact same thing. It's whatever this turns out to be. X equals negative b over 2a. And then to get the y value, we plug in x and solve for y. Intercept form, the formula, again, I'm not going to actually use it, but I'm going to show it to you. X equals p plus q over 2. I'll explain it differently when we get there. And the vertex.
Wait, we're not going to use intercept form?
We're going to use intercept form. This isn't how I'm going to find the axis of symmetry. Like, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to actually use the formula. Again, it's the exact same thing as the AOS, p plus q over 2. And then you find y the exact same way. Plug in x and solve for y. That doesn't change. Don't get caught up in the generalization that I'm doing here, especially the P and the Q. Don't worry about it. What I need you to take away from this. In both forms, the axis of symmetry gives you the start of the vertex, the x coordinate. And then you take the x and you plug it into the equation to get the y value. That's the most I need you to take from this. The bottom part here, this is extremely important. You should be well aware of this by now. For all forms, the parabola opens up if A is positive. You should already know that. And the parabola opens down if A is negative. If you're going to get anything right on the test, on the quiz, it's that. All right, we're going to graph one of these. Major disclaimer before we get into the graphing. When I answer these blanks, and you should recognize these, this is exactly how they looked on the last notes, homework and quiz, same order. I'm not going to go exactly in this order like I did with the other graphing problem. I'm going to go slightly out of order. Now the reason I didn't rearrange the blanks in order to fit the order I'm going to do is because on the test, they're going to be in this order. So if I teach you one way but then test you a different way, that's going to throw some of you off. So that is what the bold is getting at. Note, the blanks you fill in below are completely out of order. This is how they appear on the test. You have to be aware of that. So let's start. Number 1, determine whether the graph opens up or down. That's pretty straightforward. Our equation is y equals 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 1. What is the value of A?
x squared? No?
2.
No. Oh, I got you.
A is 2, and more importantly, it's positive.
So,
So what am I going to write here? Up. Up like a U. Again, everyone should get that one right. So that's step 1. Step 2, I am going to jump down to the roots blank. Step 2, find the roots, aka x-intercepts. Set the factors equal to 0 and solve for x. So I'm going to do that work down here. X-intercepts. That means we don't know x, but we do know y. Y is 0. So my equation up here, I'm going to replace the y with 0, and then you'll have the entire equation on one side. I am going to flip the sides because most of us like equals 0 on the right, but just know that's what I'm doing. My equation is 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 1 equals 0. And that 0 is in place of y. If you remember on the last set of notes, this was the part that took us the longest because we had to factor it. This is already factored, so our life is so much easier with this kind of problem. I'm just going to make a note of that. Already factored. Saves us a bunch of time. So I'm going to set these equal to 0. I've already shown you this before. If it's just a number, no x, we don't need to set it equal to 0 because what's 2 equals 0 mean? It's not true. So it's not an answer. That's okay. I just don't have to be concerned about it. If it has an x, that's what I'm concerned about. We have x plus 3 equal to 0 and x minus 1 equal to 0. Those are the parts that I am concerned about. Solving both of these, I get x equals negative 3 and x equals positive 1.
that's it.
So those are my x-intercepts. When I write these answers down, you have to do it in a specific way. If you don't do it in the specific way, you will lose credit. How do I have to write these in the blank? As points, 2 separate points. If you make a point, negative 3 comma 1 or 1 comma negative 3, that is very wrong. 2 separate points. I know that y is 0, so do I put 0 in the front or the back?
The back.
The back. It's very easy to put it in the wrong spot, and that completely changes your answer. And then 1 point gets a negative 3. The other one gets a 1. It doesn't matter which one gets which number. Just make sure you have both. If you write this any other way, except for flipping the 2 points, it's wrong. And some of you are going to learn that the hard way. So that was step 2. Step 3, graph the roots. So that's where I'm going to start. The x-intercepts. So I'm going to graph these points. Negative 3, 0, and 1, 0 on the x-axis. Reminder, roots and x-intercepts, those are interchangeable terms. They mean the same thing. So step 3, graph the roots, done. And find the number halfway between these values. This is the AOS, the axis of symmetry. So let me just walk you through this one good time. I'm going to come back up here and continue with AOS. From here, I'm going to follow the blanks in order. So I really just skip down to a step down here, and then I come back and continue in the order that I have set. I'm going to do this one good time, full explanation. After that, I'm just going to go to the graph and do it. What I'm going to draw is this portion of the number line from the left point to the right point. So the left point is sitting on -3. Then we have -2, -1, 0, and my right point is sitting on 1. I'm going to graph both points, -3 and 1. To find the AOS, you need to find the number that is exactly in the middle of these 2 points. What number is that? -1. Now, even if you are 100% confident that this is correct, always check. Remember, the axis of symmetry cuts the whole graph in half, so it's going to be the same distance from one point to the other. So make sure you count. This is 1, 2 to the left, and 1, 2 to the right. Make sure they match. If they don't, you have not found the AOS. So you'll pick a different number and test it. But we have found the correct number. So our AOS is x equals -1. And that's how we'll write it up here in the blank. And don't forget to also put it on the physical graph. So we're going to do that. Questions up to this point? If you're just following along what I'm doing, you're good. Trust the process. You'll see how all this works. Step 3 is done. Step 4. Use the AOS to find the vertex. Plug in x and solve for y. So this is nothing new. We did this on the last notes. Remember, the AOS leads us directly into the vertex. You take the number that we got for the AOS and we drop it down into x's spot. It literally says x equals -1. So we put -1 in x's spot. And we need to find the vertex by hand, the other half of the point. I'm going to use this workspace for 2 different things. So I'm going to do a little bit smaller when I'm writing, just an FYI. So vertex, we know x is -1. We don't know what y is. That's what we're trying to figure out. And we know our equation is y equals 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 1. If you don't have a calculator, please get a hold of one real quick. If you're close to my desk, come to me. I've got some. Will you pass that?
Oh, yeah,
Will you pass that to Eric? I have an extra 1 or 2, 3 back here if anyone needs one. All right, finishing this part. Y equals 2 times, instead of x, I'm going to write -1 because that's what x is. -1 plus 3 times, x again is -1 minus 1. And we let the calculator do the rest. Since my x's is at the front of the parentheses, we don't need to put negative or parentheses around the -1. If you're comfortable putting the parentheses, then go ahead and do that. On this problem, it doesn't matter. Once again, if I write it, I type it. 2 parenthesis -1 plus 3 parenthesis, another parenthesis, -1 minus 1 parenthesis. If you type this in your calculator correctly, you should have gotten -8. So I'm going to come up to the vertex blank and I'm going to put -8 in the second spot. That's the y value. Now let's graph that vertex. So on the axis of symmetry, we have -1 and then -8. This is a good place to stop and make sure your graph looks like it's on the right track. Some of you on the quiz last week, when you turned in that quiz, you know your graph was wrong. You could tell. It looked maybe crooked, or like it was going more to one side than the other, or it was like a complete guess, whatever you did. So you'll know if your graph is not looking right. You'll be able to tell. This is a good place to stop and kind of evaluate. If I draw the U shape right now, is it going the correct direction? Is it going up? Yes. This is clearly going to make an upward U, like it's supposed to, like what I have up here. So at this point, if it doesn't look like that's what it's going to do, a mistake has been made, go back and see if you can fix it. Obviously, if it's wrong right now, it's just only going to get worse. This looks good, so I'm going to keep going. Next step, step 5. We did step 4. Find the y-intercept, so we plug in 0 for x and solve. That's what a y-intercept is. That's what I'm going to do down here. Y-intercept. That means we don't know y, but we do know x, and x is 0. And again, we have our equation. Y equals 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 1. This time we're plugging in 0 for the x's. Y equals 2 times 0 plus 3 times, once again, 0 minus 1. What I love about these calculators, and the white ones do it too, you can use the up arrow and you can edit the line you just typed. So now you don't have to retype it in by hand unless you want to. I need to delete the negative sign and turn that 1 into a 0. So now I have 2 times 0 plus 3. Again, delete the negative, turn that into a 0 minus 1. Hit enter, should get -6. Y-intercept up here. X is 0, so that means the 0 goes at the front. Y is what we found, so that's -6. Once again, if you flip those numbers, it's now wrong. They have to be in the correct order if you want credit. Let's graph that point. 0, -6, that's -6 on the y-axis. On the test and quiz, you have to have at least 3 points. Right now, I have 4, and I can easily get a 5th point. I did have some students who stopped here, and they drew the U. That's okay, but if you graph the y-intercept, go ahead and reflect it to get that 5th point. This is right 1, so we're going to go left 1 to get that extra 5th point. Now, I'll draw the U shape. Don't forget to top it with arrows.
So we only need 3 points, right?
Yep, 3 minimum. Step 5 is done. Step 6, find domain, range, and then the max and min. I forgot to put that down. So the last 3 questions. Domain, don't think about it. What is it?
Negatives and positives.
Yes, good. Parabolas are always domain negative to positive infinity every time. Range, on the other hand, is never negative to positive infinity. Where's the bottom of the graph?
-8.
The bottom is right here at -8. So our range is -8. Where's it going up to? Positive infinity. Good. -8 will always get that bracket. The parenthesis always to the infinity. Last question. Do we have a max or a min here? We have a min. We have a lowest point. Min at -8. Reminder, that is going to be the same number as what's in the range. Those will match every single time. Questions on this process? Do we think this is easier than the last week's graphs? Okay. Mixed response. It's different, but I think it's easy different. That's just me.
I thought you felt the same.
About the same? Okay, that's fair. Next page. We'll do another one. We'll go quicker since it's your second run through. The hard part about this is remembering the order of the steps. So I'm going to pre-number these. We start with the opens question, and then we'll jump down to x-intercepts. Once we finish x-intercepts, we go back up to AOS and then continue the steps in order. So really, we're just doing one step out of order, if you think about it. Our equation, y equals -1/2 times x plus 2 times x minus 6. What is a? What's the value? -1/2. It's that number just in front of the parentheses. And more importantly, it is negative. That's what we need to pay attention to. We don't care that it's a fraction, we care that it's negative. Since it's negative, it opens down. Down like a frown. Next, we jump down and find the roots, x-intercepts. That requires some work. X-intercepts, that means we don't know x, but we do know y, and it must be 0. And of course, we know our equation. Reminder, I'm basically just setting my equation equal to 0. I'm replacing y with 0. -1/2 times x plus 2 times x minus 6 equals 0. And again, that's because y equals 0. So that was a y, now it's 0. Next, this is the easy part. We just set these equal to 0. -1/2 isn't going to give us anything, so I'm just going to ignore it. Pretend it's not there. Split these up. X plus 2 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. And then we solve. X is -2. X is positive 6. These are my intercepts.
And y will always be 0 for these?
Yes, for x-intercept. Remember, you should write this as 2 separate points. Y is 0 in both of these, so 0 goes in the back. The x's go in the front. So we have a -2, 0, and 6, 0. Let's graph these. These are both on the x-axis. We have -2 and positive 6.
Are we going to have a decimal on this? Are we going to have a decimal?
Not on this problem. I'll have to look ahead and tell you on others, though. Next, we're going to find the axis of symmetry. Last time I wrote this out, which you can do, but I'm just going to use the graph to do this part. Here are my 2 points. The axis of symmetry is halfway between these 2 points. -2 and 6. Just eyeballing here, which number appears to be the middle?
Wait, what? Yeah, 2.
2, yeah. Now reminder, always check, even if you're 100% sure, check. We're going to count to the left and to the right and make sure that it's the same number of units. So I go left, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure it's the same distance. Now I'll finish drawing my axis of symmetry line. We're going to write the equation in the blank. X equals 2, the number I circled, that will lead me straight into the vertex. The vertex, I already know the x value. It literally says x equals 2, so I'm going to bring the 2 down, put it in the x's spot. To find the y value, I'm going to have to come down here and do a little bit of work. Vertex. We know that x is positive 2, but we don't know y. That's what we're trying to figure out. We have our equation. Y equals -1/2 times x plus 2 times x minus 6. Let's take a moment and talk about typing this into the calculator.
Sorry to ask, but my calculator broke. Do you have
Yeah, of course. Here we go. Yes. Let's talk about typing fractions into the calculator. There is a very specific way to do this, and if you don't do it correctly, it will affect your answer, without a doubt. So -1/2. First off, when I'm just typing this in, -1, what symbol do I use to make that fraction on this calculator? You can use the ABC button. It works the majority of the time. There have been specific problems where it hasn't worked for me, so I'm just going to throw that out as a warning. However, most of the time, not a problem. So if you want to use that, that's fine. If you get an error message, I suggest trying it this way. The other button that I've never had an issue with is just the division bar. So -1 divided by 2. However, this will not give me the right answer either. Your calculator will read this differently from how you intend it. You have to tell the calculator this right here is a fraction and treat it like a fraction. What else can I do to emphasize that? Parentheses. So let me fix that. -1 divided by 2 in parentheses. If you don't type it in like that, I can guarantee you will get an incorrect answer. So to avoid that problem, let's not even use the fraction. This is a beautiful decimal, -0.5. That does not need to be put in parentheses. You can type it in just like that. So that's what I'm going to do. When I write this, I'm going to write -0.5 times my x is 2 plus 2, parenthesis, another parenthesis, again, x is just 2, minus 6. Let the calculator do the rest. -0.5, no parentheses needed. Parenthesis, 2 plus 2, parentheses, 2, hang on, parentheses, 2 minus 6. And you'll get 8 if done correctly. So going back up to that answer blank I made for myself, we now know that y is 8. Let's graph that. 2, 8. It should be on the axis of symmetry. We have 3 graphs, 3 points graphed, so now is a good time to stop and make sure this looks good so far. If I draw the parabola, will it be going up or down?
Down.
It'll be going down, vertex down. So this looks good. This is supposed to be going down. If my vertex was down here, it'd be going up. That would be concerning. Let's keep going. Y-intercept. Requires just a teensy bit of work. Y-intercept, that means we don't know y, but we know x, it's 0. Y-intercept, x is always 0. And we know our equation, y equals -1/2 times x plus 2 times x minus 6. Plugging in, we have y equals, again, I'm going to use -0.5 times 0 plus 2 times 0 minus 6. And I'm running short on time here, so I'm not going to put it in the calculator, but if you do this correctly, you will get 6. Y is 6. Let's fill that in up here. X is 0, so 0 goes in the front. Y is 6. Let's finish the graph real quick, and then I'll let you guys pack up. Put a point at 6 on the y-axis. Reflect it over. This is left 2, so I'll go right 2. And then draw your upside down U. All right, our graph is done. We just have to answer these last few questions. Reminder, domain, you don't have to think about it. Parabolas always have a domain of -infinity to +infinity. Range is bottom to top. The bottom of our graph here is going down to -infinity. So down to -infinity, and then we follow this up. It tops out at +8. So -infinity to +8. Infinity always gets a parenthesis. 8 gets a bracket because it's at a solid point. Last but not least, max or min. We have a highest point here. So this is actually a max. And it's a max at that y value, which was 8. And again, that will always match the number in the range.